Absent. Attorney Murphy.
Present.
Ms. Hurst.
Present.
Ms. Gresham.
Present.
Ms. Perez.
Under the weather.
Mr. Collins.
Here.
Mayor Sarno.
Present. Is there a motion on the floor to go into executive session?
Sure, I make a motion, we enter into executive session to, number one, discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto, and number two, to discuss strategies related to collective bargaining negotiations. The committee will return to open session.
Motion made by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
So
Second.
moved.
Second by Ms. Hurst. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor. Absent. Attorney Murphy.
Yes.
Ms. Hurst.
Yes.
Ms. Gresham.
Yes.
Ms. Perez. Absent. Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Thank you. We'll go into executive session. We'll come back to public session.
Are we clicking out of here?
Oh, Sway, are we good?
Yes, we are.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the public speak out. We have a number of speakers, 14, 15, so please, you're going to have to be limited to 2 minutes or less. Just for the record, School Committee Woman Maria Perez is a bit under the weather. Maria, we hope you're feeling better. All school committee members are on. We just came out of executive session, so I apologize if we're a minute or so late. With that, we'll go to the first speaker, Daniel Hernandez.
Excuse
Please.
me, Mr. Mayor, we can't see you. It's a black screen.
Chris,
We're on. Our video is on.
oh, it is on,
Our video is on.
yeah.
It's not showing.
Well, it's more important they can see the speaker.
There
Are
it
we
is.
there? Okay, I apologize. I don't have these issues on my Etch-a-Sketch, so thank you, thank you. Again, the first speaker is Daniel Hernandez. You have 2 minutes, please. Say again, Daniel Hernandez. Say one more time, Daniel Hernandez. Okay, we'll now move to Kim Thompson, please. Ms. Thompson? Say again, Ms. Thompson.
Right here.
Okay, Ms. Thompson, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You ready for me?
Yes,
Okay, good evening.
good evening.
My name is Kim Thompson. I am a paraprofessional and a resident in our city of Springfield. I'd like to start off by saying I feel the school committee members have done a great job making decisions during this crisis. I know some decisions have been taken away from you, our duly elected school committee. I thank you for advocating for a mass vaccination clinic for SPS employees. I appreciate you listening to our concerns. I have qualified for the COVID-19 vaccine for several weeks now. I'm going to speak to you about my experience trying to get a COVID vaccine in a timely manner. It was impossible. Conservatively, it took 16 hours and 3 weeks to get an appointment. I tried Walgreens, Big Y, and CVS. I eventually got one at Curative. I had also gone to Curative daily just in case there were extra doses. There was not. The time it took me to do that wasn't part of the 16 hours previously spoken of. Oh, I think I missed a spot. Let's see. Oh, did I say, sorry. Conservatively, it took me 16 hours and 3 weeks to get to appointment at Curative. The time it took to do go on a Curative and asking wasn't part of the 16 hours previously spoken of. I was finally able to procure an appointment with Curative using the online purpose. That ordeal only took me 3.5 hours that day. The Massachusetts vaccination website continues to state, due to the high demand and very limited supply, it may take several attempts over the course of several weeks to schedule an appointment because each site manages its own schedules and appointments. The Curative site at the Eastfield Mall will be accommodating the bulk of the Hampden County educators, which consists of 23 cities and towns and 10,255 educators, according to DESI data. This does not include all the other school employees in the buildings. The bottom line is we're going to be the first next responders. First responders in education. Many educators will be back in the classroom prior to being vaccinated with.
Seconds, Ms. Thompson, I'm sorry.
I didn't hear you?
15 seconds. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Ms. Thompson, there are a number of speakers. I apologize.
All righty. Let's see. Okay, I ask that all students, regardless of age, wear CDC-approved face masks. I ask we continue to follow CDC guidelines for social distancing in the classroom. I ask that the COVID-19 emergency paid sick leave be extended throughout the remainder of the school year. I ask you do not take procuring vaccines for a mass vaccination clinic for our staff off the table if the vaccines are not being administered as efficiently as expected. Last, I ask you to continue to advocate for all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Kelly O'Malley, please. Say again, Kelly O'Malley. Third time, Kelly O'Malley. Okay, Nicole Brunson, please. Ms. Brunson, I see Ms. Brunson there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
First, I would like to thank the school committee for the excellent job they have done during this pandemic. I can only imagine the stress one must be under in making decisions that affect countless lives. And for that, I sincerely say thank you. My name is Nicole, and I've worked for Springfield Public Schools in a paraprofessional capacity for the last 6 years. I am a longtime Springfield resident, a homeowner, and my husband works on the front line in the medical field. Our son is a kindergartner who is high risk due to several medical conditions unrelated to COVID-19, including sickle cell anemia. He's been attending his remote classes on a regular basis, as I have fulfilled my duties to the children we have been charged with at the Warner Elementary School. Approximately 2 weeks ago, I received an email stating there will be no remote positions offered. I would ask that should you vote in favor of an April 5th return date, that you include a provision for SPS employees who are primary caretakers of high-risk family members. It is my understanding that half of every classroom will be online on any given school day, and I hope to carry out my responsibilities remotely as I have thus far. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Brunson, very much. Maureen Posner, President Posner, please.
She was there.
Good evening. I am Maureen Calvin-Posner. I'm president of the Springfield Education Association. And I, like the others, want to begin by thanking you for all your support for educators, students, families, and our community. I would also like to state for the record how absolutely disgusted I am with the DESI board's irresponsible vote that was taken last Friday. To override local school committee control and strip away your decision-making power is simply undemocratic. Having said that, though, I am here to ask you to amend the school committee mask policy to include pre-K through first grade students, as well as making it clear that bandanas and gaiters are not acceptable as face masks. I would also ask you to continue to use CDC guidelines, not DESE's made-up science, and require 6 feet social distancing in all our classrooms and schools. Again, thank you for all your support and all you have done for the Springfield students and educators.
Thank you, Ms.
I
Scott.
put up a couple times.
Teresa Bryant. Thank you, Teresa. Hi, Ms. Bryant, please.
And it's hard
Good evening.
to be right here. And then this is right there. It's terrible.
Hello, can you mute?
Go ahead, Ms. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Teresa Bryan. I'm a school counselor at Glickman Elementary School. First and foremost, I too would like to thank the school committee members for their support of educators, students, and their families throughout this pandemic. I'm here tonight to ask for your continued support by voting to extend the current COVID-19 leave language, to change the mask policy to include pre-K to grade 1 and not allow bandanas and gaiters as face masks. And more importantly, I ask that you listen to the science. Information is forever changing in terms of the vaccine. I'm asking that educators who want to be vaccinated be prioritized and the vaccine be readily available prior to the return to school. I've spent the last 16 years of my social work career in education, and it baffles me that educators dismiss data and science. I can recall when we were encouraged to have children study STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Now we are asking educators to disregard the science behind CDC guidelines of 6 feet social distancing. I'm asking on behalf of myself and the students of Springfield Public Schools, please consider our safety and abide by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines of 6 feet and require masks for everyone, no exceptions. Science matters.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Thank you, Teresa. The artist, Cedric Cunningham. Cedric.
All right, good evening. Thank you very much. Cedric Cunningham, and good evening, Mayor Sarno, Springfield School Committee, and citizens of Springfield. I'm a concerned resident, educator of Springfield, Massachusetts. This evening, I would like to share with you how I feel about the state's plan to send school employees back into the buildings in April, even though the state has not committed to fully vaccinating educators and students. So I ask you, please help vaccinate all educators and students now. Yesterday, Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, I received this message in my Springfield Public Schools email account, beginning to quote, "Please be advised that although the district had anticipated hosting a mass COVID-19 vaccination clinic for staff, it appears unlikely that the district will be supplied with vaccinations to do so," end quote. While school employees are relieved that the state finally has a plan that will enable many educators to receive a COVID-19 vaccine within the next few weeks, when will our children, our students, be able to get COVID-19 vaccines? Now that Pfizer's, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccines are available, when do we get our Springfield families, community vaccinated? The decision to open schools to many more students beginning on April 5th, 2021 is not adequately timed with the vaccine rollout. Under the administration's schedule, students will be returning back into our school buildings, bringing them to the full capacity before most educators will have had the chance to be vaccinated. Circumstances are changing daily, so school communities need time to adapt. We know that many families are eager to hear what happens next.
Cedric, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. So very quickly, the lives of our students should always be in the forefront of our educators. And I want to say I thank you very much for everything that you do for this community. Thank you very much.
Cedric, thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Jean Marvel, please. Ms. Marvel.
You're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
There we go. Good evening, school committee members. Like the other previous speakers, I want to thank you so very much for your hard work and dedication to the children of Springfield this year. You've done an outstanding job, better than we could have hoped for, in managing the needs of our students to be both safe and to learn. Thank you. I teach at Springfield Central High School, and I teach English learners. As we all know, our English learners have particular challenges in the remote learning setting. That is real. They are also most at risk to returning to in-person learning before it is safe. While I do not have quantitative data, we can be sure that the families of our English learners are underrepresented among those who have been vaccinated. They have less access to information about the vaccine, and many are wary. And imagine trying to navigate, as we heard Kim talking about, the website and the process for getting a vaccine when you're not really comprehending what the words say on that screen. Big challenges in our community to getting the vaccine. In addition, our English learner families live frequently in intergenerational, multi-generational households in close quarters. They are at very high risk of developing COVID if we go back before it is safely to do so. I applaud your efforts to date and urge you to request a waiver from DESE and Mr. Riley's forced return.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Jean. Thank you. Sarah Berliner, please. Ms. Berliner.
Hello,
Yes, yeah.
I'm Sarah Berliner. I'm a Springfield resident and educator. And like many of us, I'm going to thank you for your work. And we know you're under an immense amount of pressure, both from state and federal governments. And we know it is not your fault that Commissioner Riley and Governor Baker are pressuring us to reopen, even though Springfield remains a red zone community and our data is nowhere near what was previously considered safe. However, it's really scary for us as educators who are concerned about ourselves, our families, our students, and their families. I have multiple students whose entire families have tested positive for COVID, who I know would have been in the school building. Some of them because they were asymptomatic, some of them because there's no childcare alternative available. It is inevitable that COVID will spread in our schools, and data saying otherwise is not from red zone communities. Given that, I feel that our plan needs to take into consideration the need for consistent proactive testing, the need to wait until educators have had the chance to get both doses of their vaccines, the extension of COVID sick leave for vaccination, childcare for educators who cannot get childcare because there are no preschools with open slots in Western Massachusetts right now. Additionally, there's practical technological concerns that haven't been addressed. Masks cover our voices. Computer can't hear us unless we have external microphones. That's asking teachers to purchase something with their own money. Same thing for additional masks for students when the current plan only provides one a day. Protective equipment for our educators with low incidence SPED populations who are being asked to return earlier than everyone else, even though they are in more danger, and the constant pressure from the state to ignore CDC guidelines. I understand that you have all these pressures from the state and from federal government, but we ask you to stand strong and make the choices that will protect the lives of our community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berliner. Thank you, Sheriff. Ms. Grimaldi, Giselle Grimaldi. Hi, Giselle.
Thank you, Mayor Sarno. My name is Giselle Grimaldi, and I would first like to thank the mayor, the superintendent, and the school committee for their unwavering support you have shown both the staff and the children of our schools. I'm here to ask that you continue to fight for the waiver for students whose parents are afraid to let them back into our buildings. Also, we need to mandate and maintain the 6 feet distance that the CDC recommends, and that all students, both pre-K through 12, are mandated to wear a mask, and demand that we give the priority for vaccinations along with the entire staff and the school staff the vaccinations they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. See you in church.
See you in church.
Yeah.
Pray for us.
Yeah.
We pray every Saturday.
Yes. Nancy Stenberg, please. Nancy, I saw Ms. Stenberg. I saw Nancy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, and again, I would like to add my deepest thanks to the school committee for all you've done so far. I'm here to make the case for masks for all students K through 12 in the Springfield Public Schools. Last week, COVID cases ticked up. The age category that rose the highest last week was 0 to 19 years of age. Yesterday, Commissioner Riley updated DESE guidance to state all students grade K-12 in schools are now required to wear masks. I'm asking the school committee to formally change your policy to meet this new guidance. Thank you for your time, and I am Nancy Stenberg, Dorman Elementary School librarian.
Thank you, Ms. Stenberg. See, thank you, Nancy. Carly Roy, please. Ms. Carly, I saw Carly on.
Hello,
Here she is, okay.
my name is Carly Roy, and I'm a proud kindergarten teacher at Edward P. Boland Elementary School. Hi, Boland buddies. First and foremost, I want to take the opportunity to thank Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and the school committee members for their support during this difficult school year. This is my 9th year teaching kindergarten in Springfield, and I don't think I would be wrong in speaking for everyone, staff, students, and parents when I say it's been a hard 108 school days. In our virtual classrooms, we've all had to adjust and find new ways to try to connect with each other, whether it be sending virtual emojis, dojo messages, or show and tell. One of my kids even hugged their laptop to give me a hug one day. I'm very excited to get back into the classroom and to finally be able to meet my kids in person, but I only want to do that in the safest way possible. Right now, masks are only being required for students in grades 2 through 12. Children all over the state in grades pre-K to 1 are wearing masks during school hours. If Holyoke and Chicopee public schools can implement these safeguards, why not Springfield? I'm asking you to please consider amending Springfield's mask policy to include all staff and students pre-K through 12. I always tell my students to make good choices, so let's lead by example. Thank you for continuing to put the health and safety of our entire student body and staff first.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. Thank you, Carly. We'll now go to Mr. and Mrs. Menta. Benny and Jennifer, please. I know they're on. Dynamic.
Hi, good evening. The statement I have has many moving parts, and I ask that the school committee consider all of the following parts before making a final decision prior to April 5th. Please consider the impact to the routines of the students. Many teachers have requested remote assignments and have been denied due to a technicality that does not take into consideration the impact it will have on the safety and well-being of their high-risk dependents at home. I am a teacher, and I am a father of a 1-year-old who suffers from a very rare and uncurable liver disease, which has significant risk factors for severe COVID disease if infected. I am being forced to apply for unpaid leave or FMLA as a result. While this is an option, it is not the best option for the students of Springfield. Teachers are being forced to regretfully withdraw from the students' growth and forced to choose between the well-being of their families and the dedication and growth of their students. The students of SPS rely on the consistency, structure, trust, and strong relationships that they have built throughout the year. A break in a student's routine with the introduction of a change, whether the classroom or a teacher, can prove devastating to the mental health and the trust that the Springfield students have towards the Springfield public school system. Students don't have to suffer any more stress because you have teachers that are willing to do the job. Please let them. I want to thank the school committee so far this year. You've been amazing. I think the students need to hear that more from the teachers, that it's because of you, Mayor Sarno, Mr. Warwick, and the school committee that we have been in the safest possible place right now. And I hope and trust that we will continue to grow in the safest way possible moving forward. But please consider my statement.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Menta, and good health in your family. We'll now have Wanda Crawford. I saw Ms. Crawford on. Ms. Crawford?
Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warnick, and school committee members. I'm a parent and a Springfield resident. Thank you for taking a minute to listen to my request on behalf of all students and parents of the Springfield Central graduation class of 2021. Please take a moment and go back to your high school years. How exciting it was to reach senior year. to experience senior days such as senior class day, prom, and most importantly, graduation. It was the year you were waiting for since elementary. Preparing and walking on the graduation stage was the ultimate experience, listening to the speeches and waiting for your name to be called. COVID took a whole year of in-person learning, sports seasons, interactions with friends, coaches and college tours, prom, class day, and a few other activities are in jeopardy. But for the first time in a whole year, the numbers of COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths in Massachusetts are going down. Now with the vaccine, there's even more hope for numbers to continue to go down. Last year, the city of Springfield was one of the few districts that did not have the traditional graduation. All surrounding districts, including Savage and Holyoke, had an outdoor graduation with social distancing, masks, 2 parent per student attendance, and a big screen for everyone else in the parking lot to be able to participate. Rain did not stop Dr. Mahoney and his staff to give one of the most memorable moments in these students' lives who worked so hard for the past 4 years. I understand Springfield schools did their best, but it was not the same experience. We have students that are depressed due to a lack of social interactions and the uncertainty of what tomorrow will bring. Why couldn't we improve the graduation experience this year? Give the students something positive to look forward to. We have a football field that can be set up to accommodate a graduation. We can utilize both sides of the stands. We can reach out to the Holyoke Public Schools for insight. I am not asking you to make a decision tonight. I am asking you to seriously consider it. Our future leaders deserve that and more. Thank you for listening, and thank you for everything you do for us.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. I want to thank everybody, I know the school committee does too, for your very heartfelt testimonies. That concludes public speak out. We'll shortly be going into the public session of our regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you and God bless. we're already planning again to get out. Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Naylor,
Present.
Attorney Murphy,
Present.
Ms. Hurst,
Present.
Ms. Gresham,
Present.
Ms. Perez,
Ms. Perez is under the weather. Maria, hope you're feeling better. So she'll be unable to attend this evening.
Mr. Collins,
Here.
Mayor Sarno.
Present. Will you all please rise for a moment of silence and then a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the approval of minutes. Approve the minutes of February 11th, 2021, regular session, and February 25th, 2021, working session meetings. Any questions or comments?
Move that they
Hearing
approve.
none. Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required via the Zoom meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Present. Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez, absent, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Thank you very much. We'll now move into voting items, section 3. This is A, to approve acceptance of donations from Eastman Chemical Company, approximately 1,500 lap desks for student use, which was just fantastic. Superintendent Warren.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor. It was a fantastic gesture on the part of Eastman Company. They stepped up during the Christmas season and actually, I think, did $1,500 gift certificates for our kids from Big Y. They stepped up again to see if they could help some of our students that didn't have appropriate desks in their homes to work on. And they designed a lap desk that would work for them and provided 1,500, which we've been distributing through our mass distribution sites for our food. I know Chris is on their board. He called me on this, and it's been through budget and finance for acceptance and recommended.
Vice Chair Collins, thank you again for facilitating that. Any questions or comments? Again, they've been a very good corporate citizen, and it means a lot to the students who are at home.
A shout out to Gina, who sits on the board with me as well.
Gina Allen talked a big
Yeah,
part.
Gianna, yeah, she
was a
was
big help with that.
Yeah. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion on the floor to accept?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins, is second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez, absent, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Thank you very much. C is to approve the school reopening plan. Again, I want to thank my cabinet heads.
B.
Oh, B, I'm sorry. I'm still on the executive session and public speak up. B, I apologize. B is to approve the FY22 budget calendar.
Yeah,
That work?
yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to the chair of the budget committee, but we met yesterday with the budget finance subcommittee. Pat can speak to this, but this calendar is very similar to what we've done in past years. So I'll turn it over to Pat and Chris.
Yeah, it's the same calendar. You should recognize it as far as the sequence. All we did was adjust it for the right dates for this year, same weeks, right dates. So, but it's the same calendar we've used for about 3 or 4 years now in a row. Works out very well. Gives 2 opportunities for the public to give input, more than anybody else in the state that I know of. So it got unanimous approval from the Budget and Finance Committee.
Thank you, Vice Chair Collins. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment, sir.
Yes, Ms. Naylor, please.
I just wanted to make sure that we don't forget to add it to the website. I know last year we put it on the website and folks were very appreciative of that once the draft is ready to go. And also, I know there's a survey that folks can also comment on that will be posted on the website. So I just wanted to make sure folks are aware of that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Naylor.
For reminding me.
Yeah, so, any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Naylor, is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Collins. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez, absent, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board of official vote is passes. Now, C is to approve the school reopening plan. Again, I want to thank my cabinet heads, Director of Facilities and Parks, Patrick Sullivan, and Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Helen Calton Harris, who is also here. They have long days too, but they've been a great partnership on the city side with the schools to make sure that everything is being done above and beyond. Superintendent Warwick?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And again, in keeping with that, I'd like to ask Helen and Pat to speak first. They have a key piece in this. Helen's really been a part of our team every day since this crisis began, which is a year ago, Mayor.
Yes.
We had a meeting on this, and Helen's been with us ever since, helping us through this crisis. But Helen, if you wanted to give us an update on the situation in Springfield relative to the pandemic, then we'll have Pat then present on the facilities piece with the ventilation systems.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Superintendent, school committee members. Thank you for your support and for your work. It has been a long year, I know, for all of us. I am not going to take much of your time. The reports that I do are posted on the city's website. Please take an opportunity to look at them if you have not. What I will say is that the city is still red. I'm sure all of you probably have looked at the map. We are still in the red zone. However, the good news is that last week at this time, we had 289 cases, and this week it's 223 for the same period. So we are 66 cases less than this time last week, and so that's good news. We are headed in the right direction, but obviously there are still a lot of work to do. As you are aware, the governor has put out his guidance around the restaurants reopening, as well as indoor performance venues and the relaxation for businesses. And so certainly we are glad to see our community reopen, but we're also very concerned about individuals not following the guidance and feeling as though this pandemic is behind us. Obviously, it is not. The teachers, as you know, are going to be designated. They are going to be able to be vaccinated beginning March 11th. And the Commonwealth is standing up the mass vaccination sites on very specific days for teachers, school staff, and others who work in the schools. That is going to start on March 11th. You can go to the mass.gov website to take a look at what those days are. And so we are feeling as though we are moving again in the right direction. As far as vaccines are concerned for the city of Springfield and those communities who are certainly struggling in terms of economics, we are going to be making an announcement tomorrow about some neighborhood clinics that we hope to stand up. We are continuing to put a plan in place for a permanent sites, working with my partner, Patrick Sullivan. I don't mean partner in the partner way. Y'all get what I'm talking about, right? My partner, Patrick Sullivan. We walked sites today at all of the sites that we are going to stand up next week. And so we are comfortable that we have a plan that we will present to the mayor at least for next week. But again, we're looking at permanent sites so that we can, once we get vaccines, our operations are seamless. So that's where we are right now, still in the red, but going in the right direction. Johnson & Johnson vaccine, I should say, there was only a very limited allocation of Johnson & Johnson vaccine that came to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The congregate care settings, shelters, really feel as though J&J would be helpful to their residents or their the individuals they house, because it's one shot and they don't have to worry about trying to gather information, individuals to get revaccinated. So that is a brief update. Again, I'm appreciative of your time. I want to thank Jeannie Clancy, Assistant Superintendent Lydia Martinez, and AD Early for the work that they've done with the school students. You probably have heard, but I'll say it again, that we tested all of the athletes. We tested 204 athletes and all came back negative. That's good news for us. So I want to say that the sports team under the direction of AD Early are doing an amazing job of keeping our students safe. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris. We'll take any
Commissioner.
questions you might have of Helen right now, and then we'll go to Director Patrick Sullivan. Any questions of school committee members to Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris, please?
I have a question.
Ms. Naylor.
The sites that you're talking about, Commissioner, that are going to be set up starting next week, do we have appointments already open for those? Are folks already able to start making appointments?
We do not have the links that are up yet. I anticipate that those links will be available to the public next week. The clinics are not next week, so we wanted to give individuals that week to be able to sign people up effectively. And so they will be available starting next week. And at each site will have its own separate link.
Okay, and will those be, where would folks find that link? Would they have to go to the state website or would it be locally on the city website?
It will be a local link. It will be directly on the city's website. And we will, again, that link will only be for the specific site on the specific day. We expect those appointments will go quickly. I just want individuals to understand we are not one and done. We anticipate additional vaccines and we will be setting up in those neighborhoods again. But to answer your question, Councilwoman, the links will be available on the city's website as that day arrives.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Naylor. Helen has done a tremendous job. We have our internal system, which has worked very, very well. Everybody has said that. We've done our own at Bowling School and others. And also, Helen and I have lobbied respectfully, but heavily from the governor on down, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, and Commissioner Monica, Health Commissioner Monica Burrell from the state. They like our plan. They like what we're putting across. And again, Governor Baker, the more vaccines that come from the federal level, trickle down, we know what to do. As soon as we get our hands on it, we know Helen knows what to do on that. But let me open it up again. Any other questions or comments from school committee members?
Mayor, if I could ask the commissioner or a question. So those sites are going to be for the general public who currently meet the criteria. Is that inclusive of the teachers since they were prioritized as of today?
Yes, I suppose that is not something that I factored in because I was not aware that we all lobbied for teachers to be moved up. But yes, we do hope that the teachers, though, will take advantage of the mass vaccination site because it's going to be closed to everybody but educators or individuals who work in schools. And so we're hopeful if individuals go to those sites that it can be done quickly and effectively. And so we are not taking slots that could potentially go to very vulnerable neighborhoods and individuals. Remember, the plan we put forward was a social equity plan. It was the plan to go into those places where we believe there was a high prevalence of virus based on our data. And so we are standing up in places where we think there is a need. So we're hopeful that the teachers will take advantage of the state's sites.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, for clarifying that because the point, that's how we're able to sell that plan to disadvantaged and underserved in the neighborhoods. Qualified, whether senior citizens or not, that might be just able to walk right to that site. So I assume the teachers, if you're in that neighborhood area, would consider that. But I think you do have, as Helen indicated, either 4 or 5 separate dedicated days of mass vaccination sites that only educators and school department workers are going to be taken on that. So we're trying to get to the most vulnerable in the neighborhoods. And Helen, again, as we've done, we base it on the statistics and the facts of these areas where the numbers are higher and the vaccine percentages of being vaccinated are low. Ms. Hurst, I'm sorry.
Just once again, Mayor, so a lot of our staff, I don't think, heard that. So there are 4 days that they go on the mass site.
Completely.
That's only going to be for educational personnel.
That's it.
So if people go on that site, you'll find that there are days that are reserved just for the educators. And that's probably going to be one of your best shots of getting registered for a shot quickly.
And just to let you know, I was up the East Mall again today with curative, and once you get through that application process, running very smoothly. I spoke to, you're in and out of there 20, 25 minutes, including the wait time, shot, and you're in and out of it. So that's been solved. We intervened. That's been solved. So, getting on, I guess there's a waiting period that you get on to. So that's where we stand. Any other questions or comments of Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris, please?
May I just make one last comment? Our vaccine committee, Vax Force, is hosting a town hall on March 16th, which is next Tuesday from 6 to 8. And I'm hopeful that individuals will take advantage of the amazing individuals that we have who will be talking about the vaccine and talking about various areas. They're really very, very credible individuals who have a lot of information to share. So please join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris. If there's no other, Attorney Murphy, go ahead, Pete. Did you have a question or no? Maybe just waiting more. Okay. If there's no other.
No, Mayor, I'm sorry. I was just waving.
Okay. If there's no other questions for Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris, I'm going to let her get some rest. We're only getting a few hours sleep at a time. If any other questions for Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris? Okay, hearing none. Helen, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Yes, you will. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Helen. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm now going to turn it over to Director Patrick Sullivan of Facilities and Parks and his team. That they've done yeoman work above and beyond. He'll give you the physical plant update on what we have done with our schools, and again, it is above and beyond with the ASHRAE standards. Director Sullivan.
So thank you, Mayor, and I share Helen's appreciation for the school committee for giving us the time. I think your vote that you took December, January for March, April was well planned, as it gave us sufficient time to do this work. We've completed $1.2 million in work to the schools. There's basically, as you know, 3 tiers, levels of work that we've done. The newer school buildings like a Putnam are tier 1. Those receive the I-Wave units, and those are completed across the district. Your tier 2s are schools that basically have univents, and then those all have the MERV 13, and we also have the ability to run those systems at a 25 to 30% increased air capacity, and we can set all those right at our facilities division. That is thankfully, again, from earlier votes that the mayor and you have taken in support of our ESCO plans, and it's those EMS systems that allow us to do it. Those are in 85% of the schools across the district. And then tier 3 are the older buildings like Brightwood and Homer. Those all have the carrier units now installed. The electrical upgrades have been completed as well. When I met with you 2 weeks ago, I indicated we had just finished our review of the 2 rental locations. We received a letter from Colbert, who manages the Holy Name site. They've assured us they've ordered all the window repair parts, and it's basically a 2-day project to do those updates, so no concerns there. And at the Conservatory of the Arts, the owner is still working to get the equipment that was required to do his upgrades. So what we have done at the mayor's request, we've ordered 51 of the carrier units. Those are going to be loaded into the building over this next week. And we're going to do one more walkthrough next Thursday, Friday with our industrial hygienist. So all of our buildings will be into compliance where we want them to be. So that's the good news. So, and then on the other flip side, we started getting additional filter. So we have another $200,000 to $300,000 in purchase orders for filters. So we're going to be still doing those timely filter replacements as quarterly rather than biannually. So we're ready to roll. And again, I can't thank you all enough for your support. And then you should have gotten this electronically. I think the superintendent sent this out as soon as we got it. And we're here. As you get questions, we're a phone call away. So just let the superintendent know, because I know it's still probably a confusing time for people. So if you've got questions, we're here to help you get answers to your constituents as they come up.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. Any questions or comments for Director Patrick Sullivan?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Gresham.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for all that you do. So my question is, given the changes, the updates, and the improvement to the ventilation and filtration system, will the air quality be just as effective in a classroom of 10 people as well as a classroom of 20?
Yep, we've done our plans to be fully with everyone in the school building. So we built this plan around as you would have full capacity in a building. So you're ready to roll out at any time to have your full enrollment into a school building.
So even if it's 20 students in a classroom, the air quality will be just as good?
That's correct.
Just as effective?
Again, we did this to the ASHRAE standards. We based it on, I think, 25 students per classroom. So we have built this whole plan around those numbers.
Okay, all right, perfect, thank you.
We're gonna have the proper air exchange under these ASHRAE standards for 25 students per classroom.
We went well above and beyond the DESI standards for the betterment, the safety, public health and safety of our students, teachers, staff, and families. So we're well above the DESI recommended standard.
And again, you started off in a very good place. We didn't have an air quality issue pre-COVID in our school buildings. So this, where some districts might be struggling, we went through this. When you figure we did this over a 10-week period to get this work done, it's really amazing. And it's the $35 million that's been invested over the past 8 years that got us to this point to be ready for this type of a situation.
And again, we brought in an independent industrial hygienist, well-respected firm. And that's a testament really to Pat Sullivan and his team on all the proactive work we've done ahead of time. He said it at the school committee meeting a few times that he was very pleasantly surprised at how good a shape the air quality in our Springfield public school systems are compared to many of the school systems he views in New England. So that's a testament to Pat Sullivan and team.
And you should also be proud that you took the stand. If you remember, DESI's recommendation in September was to put a box stand with a filter taped to it into a window. That was their answer. And we all knew that we wanted better for our students. So we've all worked together to make the right decision. And so we're ready to open for you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chris. Any other questions or comments of Director Sullivan? Okay, say again, if not, I'm going to let Pat get home and get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, so that is pertaining to the
Yeah, that was the beginning items relative to the school reopening plan. So what I wanted to do, and Paul's going to help me with this and project on the screen, just some of the changes since the last meeting in our reopening plan. So
I want to thank the school committee again for allowing Director Sullivan and Commissioner Colton Harris to do their part so they can get home, do some rest, get some rest.
we're not going to go through the whole plan with you. We've talked about it before and you've had it. We're just going to go over a few of the changes. Many of the changes are in light of DESI's ruling relative to student return. From the beginning, and we still do, we want to get our high needs special ed students back in our first group. We have gotten 3 demand letters from DESI on that. Our slight ELL students in our first group are 3 programs. And our 10th to 12th grade vocational students at Putnam Vocational High School for the vocational classes, which we know we could do safely. So there, we're recommending they come in our first group, along with our pre-K to 5, which DESE mandated come in. And we added 6th grade to that. Our 6th grade, our middle school principals felt strongly in the empowerment zone that the 6th graders need to come back sooner than later. So we're recommending they come in with that first group, again, April 5th. DESE just came out with their regulations relative to the rest of middle school returning. They're mandating 6th to 8th grade come back in April 28th, which is a Wednesday. We think that would be better done on a Monday after vacation, because Wednesdays, we go every other Wednesday in our hybrid plan. We think that would be confusing. So our phase 2, the other middle school students would come in April 26th. DESE has not given us a date for high school yet. They're saying they're going to give us a date in a few weeks on that. And so we're holding out to see what the requirement for high school is going to be. High school is the hardest to return because of the mixing of the cohort groups. So they were well advised to wait till last for the high school program, because it would be hard to offer a high quality program right now. Some of the things that we're recommending is that we start our staff coming back into school. And we'd like our staff to return to our buildings on March 29th. So we'll be ready for when the students come back into school, so they can deliver the remote programs initially from their classrooms, get their classroom ready, and then we'd be ready to deliver for our students as they come in phases. Our cohort groups, a lot hasn't changed here. Again, we're going to have an A group that's going to come in on Monday, Tuesday, every other Wednesday. The B group, every other Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Our C group, which are some of the high need students we talked about, and our VOC students to begin with, are going to come in 5 days a week initially. And again, I think I want to emphasize this for parents especially. Any parent, we're surveying all the parents that wants their child to stay remote for the remainder of the year. DESE is allowing them to stay remote for the remainder of the year. So if that's your request, we're going to honor that request. But if you want them to come in, well, we're also going to honor that request. So that's how the cohort groups have been set up. That's not new. What's new is when we go into full reopening, we're going to consolidate some of those groups. So that A and B group, when we go into full reopening, if we're not in a hybrid plan, which DESE is mandating to occur this year at some juncture, we would combine our A and B group into as one cohort C group. They'd be coming 5 days a week for full reentry. So our SPED kids will be coming in that group all 5 days a week from the beginning, but the A and B groups at some point, and we're going to suggest a May 10th for pre-K to 8 on that, would come in 5 days a week. Again, the students who want to stay remote are going to be allowed to stay remote. So those are really the changes we've made in that piece of the plan. Paul, if you want to roll through, and we'll go again just over the other changes. Page 8 of the plan. So that's the piece that's DESE's requiring, the 5 days a week at some point this year, and that the kids who want to stay remote, again, can stay remote. What we'd like to do on the survey is, again, honor all the parents' requests, but if a parent initially chooses that they re-enter on a hybrid, but then has a change of mind on that decision, what we'd allow them to do is change that decision, and they could change to go remote by just notifying the school. So we understand. The opposite of that is going to be much harder because it would require rerouting the buses and adding, but we would allow them to change and make it a change in that and honor those requests right away. Another change in the plan, and do you have that one? We talked about this, right? Yeah, we talked about this one already. At some point, when we go full reentry, everyone's going to be 5 days a week in person. So this is a change, again, required by DESE. We feel, especially if we open hybrid, we could keep everyone 6 feet apart, but we've tweaked it to say that as we move forward and more students come back in, to follow the DESE guidance, it could go down to 3 feet apart. But again, when we open hybrid, we can keep 6 feet apart for everyone. And even when we open full, we think most of the classes we're going to be able to keep 6 feet apart or as close to it as possible. So that was a tweak we made to come into compliance with what DESE is requiring. And this request came through from several people today, and DESE has changed the guidance. So pre-K, K, and 1, we're going to require wear a mask at all times. Before it was strongly advised. So this is a small change. Many other communities have done this, and the kids haven't had a problem with the requirement. And it will improve the safety for everybody. So we've put that into the policy, and we know we can execute that. Paul, do you want to go next, talking about some of the other changes?
Yes, thanks. And I'm going to share some slides. You want me to, Superintendent, you want me to move into the waiver, right?
I'd like to, did we cover everything we wanted to cover? Did Stefania have a piece too that we wanted to cover?
Yeah, that was just the 5 days a week and the fact that some students who want to will still be remote even in a 5-day scenario. And so the teaching and learning model will still look the same.
And it wouldn't change kids' schedules. So if you remember, it's probably been a couple months now that we had brought it to the school committee. We had wanted to move from asynchronous to more synchronous. So with the hopes of at some point we would be returning either hybrid or fully, and then it wouldn't have to change the student's schedule again. They would be able to remain with the same educators and in the same classes. So the schedules have already changed. And so there would be very little effect on students as far as changing teachers and classes.
Thanks, Stefania. The next piece Paul was going to cover with you, he's done a lot of work on this, is this just came out this week also. For communities that wanted to get a waiver from the requirement of a full return on April 5th, they could apply for a waiver. And for a community like Springfield, we get considered for this because right now we're still remote and the community's had a high prevalence. So Paul's going to take you through that waiver process now.
Great, thank you. Apparently, I think it's yesterday. Sorry about the date on there. So first, I just want to cover the regulations. So this came out with the board vote was on March 5th, which was giving the Commissioner Riley the authority to decide when hybrid and remote learning would no longer count under the structured learning time regulations. And so then the guidance was issued on the 9th. So the board voted to give him the authority. He exercised that authority on the 9th. And so this slide is really summarizing the key parts of that guidance. And just to make sure we're on the same page, what the structured learning time regulations say in a typical school year, the structured learning time regulations would require a 180-day year with 5 hours per day of learning time at the elementary level and 5.5 hours per day of learning time at the secondary. Now, the legislature made a change back in the fall that this year would be 170 days. So that's really the regulatory lever the state is using to require the return to in-person learning. So the guidance that was issued on the 9th, as the superintendent already said, parents and guardians can continue with remote learning for the remainder of the year. And just to give you a brief update on where we are in that, we're continuing to survey families for those phase 1 students. The superintendent went over the phases. So the selected populations as well as pre-K through 6th grade, We have about an 85% response rate at this point, which is very good. And I believe we're close to 70% in phase 2 and a little bit lower in phase 3. As of now, across all grade levels, somewhere between 48 and 52% of students are opting to remain fully remote for the remainder of the year. So that's kind of where that stands currently. So what the regulatory changes require is that, the superintendent kind of covered this already. So by April 5th, kindergarten to 5th grade students must learn in person 5 days per week. So students who have not opted for remote have to learn in person 5 days a week as of April 5th. And as of April 28th, the same is true for 6th, 8th grade students. What they have said for high school is the date will be determined and announced during, they are saying that they're going to announce the high school date during the month of April, and that they will give districts at least 2 weeks notice. So that's what we know at this point about high school. The other thing that's important in their regulations is desks have to be spaced closer together than 6 feet if that's necessary to bring students back 5 days. And I'll cover that a little bit more in the next slide. And they're saying that the level of risk, so whether a community is red, yellow, or green, is not a consideration in whether a school district returns to in-person learning. And they do it, their guidance cites various research to support that. So the main thing I want to talk to you about is the waiver. So within the regulations that were announced on the 9th, districts can apply for a waiver of the requirement to come back 5 days. So you cannot apply for a waiver to stay fully remote. That's not even an option. The only option is a waiver to not bring students back 5 days a week. The reasons, they give very specific reasons why you can get a waiver. One is to take the necessary time to return carefully if still fully remote. So that absolutely applies to the Springfield Public Schools. We have been fully remote. And so that's a reason that we could use in applying for a waiver. The others are, different grade configurations. Some districts have K4 schools. And if they have a K4 school, they can apply for a waiver for their 5th graders. They mention that you can apply for a limited waiver on a basis of operational constraints and feasibility issues. And then they say other requests considered case by case. The most important thing, and I just wanted to give you the actual language from the DESE guidance, which is what those next 2 bullets are. So they are very clear. Waivers will not be granted for districts that indicate they cannot return to in-person learning due to space constraints if they're trying to maintain a physical distance greater than 3 feet. So DESE, really since the fall, has been saying 3 feet is fine. And there's obviously lots of debate about that point, but from the perspective of submitting a waiver, they're going to deny any waiver that uses 6 feet of distancing as the justification. They're also, as I said on the previous slide, they are not going to grant waivers on the basis of community prevalence. The requirements, and this was something that we were not expecting when they announced their guidance. We cannot submit a waiver without identifying a date on which students will return 5 days a week for in-person learning. So we can't just say we need a waiver for some time. We have to say in the waiver application, the fixed date when we're planning for that 5-day return to happen. And we have to obviously identify the justification. So this is what we are proposing in terms of submitting a waiver. And we'd like to submit a waiver as soon as possible because they're saying they will turn around a response within 5 days. And obviously the sooner we get an answer, the better in terms of planning and messaging to families. For elementary schools and 6th grade, so as the superintendent said, we're proposing bringing 6th grade back as part of phase 1 on April 5th. Our waiver application would be to return in-person students on a hybrid schedule on the 5th, and then return to a 5-day per week for in-person. Again, I want to keep emphasizing 5-day a week for in-person students only, not the students who opted to remain remote, starting that on May 10th. That's 4 school weeks from April 5th. The idea there is, we know that about 50% of our students are coming back, but while we're in the hybrid, it'll only be 25% of those students on any given day. And so the idea is have a lower density, have only about 25% of our students in the building for 4 weeks, so we can adapt to and adjust to the safety protocols and kind of learn them alongside our students. And then 4 weeks later, be ready to bring students back 5 days a week. And then 7th and 8th grade, again, they'd be coming back on the 26th in a hybrid. We're also proposing the same May 10th date for the 7th and 8th grade to return to 5 days a week. And the reason that's only a 2-week time, but the middle schools will already have had some experience with their 6th graders over the previous weeks. And so we feel like for that smaller population of just 7th and 8th graders, a 2-week kind of lead time in going from hybrid to 5 days a week is sufficient. And then I really spoke to the justification already. So our justification will be, as a district that's been fully remote, we need some time with lower density in our buildings before we can ramp up to 5 days a week. And that concludes the kind of presentation on the waiver.
Yeah, so we wanted to open it up for questions and then want to vote on the open reopen plan.
School committee members, please, any questions or comments?
Well, of course.
Sir?
So I have several questions and I'll only pose 1.5. Paul ended with talking about the justifications for the waiver. And one of the things that he just finished talking about was the lower density. And so I guess I'm wondering why, because I think it was in the very first slide that the superintendent, or the very first plan that the superintendent went over a little before Paul. Why are we requiring all the teachers to return on March 29th? Why wouldn't we continue to have a smaller footprint and phase them in as we are phasing in the students?
We feel the buildings are more than safe and ready for the teachers to return. It's time for the teachers to come back into the buildings. The buildings are actually safe right now for all of the teacher and all the students. So there's no reason they can't go to the buildings.
But I mean, with respect to potential exposure, like, right, if we're keeping a small footprint or we're trying to sort of phase in, why would we bring in more people to the building? And I think there was somebody, maybe it was a public speaker, who talked about like what other models had been followed in other districts. Not all, some districts have phased in teachers just like they've phased in the kids in order to be able to sort of control for potential outbreaks.
Yeah, I think that most districts have phased in all of the teachers much sooner than us. But you know, we waited a long time to bring the teachers back. It was time for them to come back into the buildings. And it's more than safe. The buildings are safe right now for all of the students and all of the staff. So there's no issue with the building safety for the teachers returning. So we feel that on March 29th, it's time for all the teachers to come back.
Can I follow up? For elementary and sixth grade, they would all need to be in the building.
They would need to set up their rooms, all of the I need special ed.
Because they're
everyone
teaching
else.
whether the child's remotely or in front of them.
Right.
Sixth grade, the exact same thing.
Right.
Right? And so what you, okay. So with the vast majority of our people are already going to be setting up to teach the way they're going to be continuing to teach the rest of the year.
Right.
Ms. Hurst, I don't know if you were done. Denise.
Are there any sharing of classrooms? Are there going to be any sharing of classrooms?
Could there be 2 teachers in a classroom? Sure. There could be 2 teachers in a classroom. But they certainly wouldn't have any problem with staying 6 feet apart for safety with a mask.
Did you mean sharing by students, Mrs. Hurst, or did you mean sharing by teachers? Did you mean are kids going to change class? I'm not sure if I followed your question.
Yeah, no. I meant like, will they be like sharing a class? Like, will they be in like teacher and para like they've usually, or they?
Could be a teacher and a para in a class, yes.
And so, yeah, I guess I'm just one. I'll circle back. I'll allow others to ask some questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, so I have a question. I have a few as well, but I'll take my time and kind of share the floor as well. So kind of piggybacking on the question that Mrs. Hurst asked about the phase-in, can you clarify, Paul, for the waiver? The expectation is that we have no option if we're going to come back on April 5th. The question is that we want to ask for a waiver to be able to delay and phase in some of our kids later on, but we know that certain grades are expected to start April 5th, or we will not get credit for their time if they're not in the buildings. If we're not considered to be in person, but we are giving parents the option to still remain remote.
Yes, so if we don't bring the students that are required to come back on April 5th and then on April 28th, it will not count towards 170 days. And so the state is saying in that scenario, you have to go longer into the summer until kids have met their 170 days.
Okay, but either way, with people coming back full time, we're still giving them the option to be remote. So
Yes.
in essence, the being fully in person is really about having the teachers back. And then the students, which I think right now the surveys are showing about 50% of students are probably not going to be in school anyways.
Right. So you're right. So based on the survey results as we see them right now, even 5 day per week in person, we're going to be at about 50% of capacity in terms of the number of students who would typically be in our buildings in a normal year. We're going to be about 50% of that, even when we move to the 5 day per week.
But the commissioner felt that allowing families to make a decision to stay remote for the rest of this year was appropriate. So he made that decision.
Okay, so we're basically allowing those families who are ready to come back and want to come back the opportunity to come back,
right,
based on the state's mandate. Okay, right. And so the other piece of it, and then I'll be quiet for a second, is when we talk about the face mask. So I know I heard it several times that folks were saying, want to make sure that we are enforcing that certain things are not appropriate, or if they're not, then folks can't wear them. And I know we talked about it a few months ago at a school committee meeting, and we did say that the masks have to still be part of the uniform code. So what would be deemed inappropriate if you were to wear it anyways, not uniform, excuse me, I didn't mean to say that, dress code. Part of the dress code policy is certain things are inappropriate or unacceptable, then they're not supposed to wear it. So they wouldn't be allowed to wear certain types of t-shirts or certain types of images or certain things on their mask, just like they wouldn't be able to wear it if it was a t-shirt. But what I guess I would like to know is if we in fact did change that wording, because I feel like we did, but I don't remember if we did or not, because I wouldn't want to leave any room for confusion. And then I know we also did talk about the uniform situation where, folks are having trouble getting uniforms, number one, financially, but otherwise, because they're not even in the stores, you can't find them on Amazon. So that's another issue that we're hearing about a lot from constituents.
Yeah, so to answer the face masks are going to be required for all grade levels. The actual following of the face mask requirement that's even before. And relative to the uniforms, we've got a lot of discussions with school committee about the uniforms. And we think it's very reasonable to allow anyone who wants to wear the uniform when they come back, that would be fine. But we wouldn't enforce the policy for the rest of this year for the uniforms because it would be a hardship on families. So we would, with the school committee support, be glad to message that and follow through on that.
And if folks do come in the buildings with inappropriate masks, they'll be given a face mask from us.
We'll have plenty of masks available. So if it's not a mask that meets the requirement, we'll give them a mask that would be appropriate. With the mayor's support, we have more masks than we know what to do with. We have a lot of PPE provided.
We stocked, Latonia, we learned this, so we continue to stockpile. God forbid we have to go through this again, Donald. So we continue to stockpile the city and schools. Just another point, Superintendent and Vice Chair, just to clarify the point on the order from the Board of Ed and Mr. Riley, that the time, I think, I don't know if the school committee said the time would not count for education time for our students, which means we have to extend the year well into the summer. And I understand there's a financial penalty, substantial daily of $1.5 million a day that the system would have to take on, which would cut into the budget. Am I correct on that?
You are.
That's $1.5 million a day if we do not abide by the order of yes.
The commissioner has the power through the student learning time regulations due to the Board of Ed.
So just a question to follow up on the two questions about teachers. When a teacher's in the classroom teaching, they're teaching both the children in front of them and the students at home remote simultaneously.
Correct.
Correct. That's why they need to be there to do the teaching, because it's not like you've got a separate person teaching the ones who are home remote. It's the same teacher.
The same teachers, right? We purchased the technology.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
So teachers in the classroom, third grade classroom. The technology is now going to be in place, so that teacher, while they're teaching the children in front of them, that same lesson is going to the students who are at home, learning remotely, simultaneously. So the teachers, when all the kids are in, the teachers have to be there to teach them, and they're teaching both the remote learner and the live learner simultaneously.
Right, but Chris, what are the teachers whose grade has not phased in yet? And I guess I'm only bringing that point up because one, we just talked about capacity. We talked about I forget the word, or the lower density that Paul mentioned. And I also am thinking about the idea that not everyone might be vaccinated by then because of the 4 dates that were provided. So might it make sense that if possible, we bring in those who we know need to be in for the grades that we're phasing in, and then phase in the others, and perhaps that would allow them, we'd be scaling, right? We'd be allowing them an opportunity to continue to do the teaching that they've been doing, but also perhaps, they would take a back seat, or maybe they'd be a part of the 3rd round or the 3rd date of testing. I'm just trying to figure out, this isn't easy. And I know that the superintendent and his staff have been working around the clock on this. And I know the school building leaders and the teachers, I know that. And I'm just trying to figure out how can we, because this is a mandate, and I draw the parallel that it's very similar to an unfunded mandate for DESE to now want to take local control.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what has occurred. And so I'm just trying to figure out what can we do to sort of lessen the blow and ease the lift and make people feel a bit more comfortable. And I know, and I think it was School Committee Woman Naylor who talked about, the fear of the unknown, and that there have been other districts that have done this and it's been done successfully. And I would love to see that happen with us. And I know that that's what people are working towards. So I'm just trying to figure out, what can we do?
Can I just, Mr. Mayor, is it okay if I just wanted to clarify in terms of when I was speaking about the density, I just wanted to clarify, I really was talking, obviously, when I was talking about student density in terms of our waiver ask, but really what we were talking about is within a given classroom, right? If we do the hybrid for the first few weeks, in a given classroom, there's a lower density of students in any one classroom. When we're talking about staff, and when we as a team, we're talking about the March 29th date, in the high schools, for example, other than those low incidence special education classrooms where students would be back, there would be no students in the classroom. So they'd be coming back and teaching from an empty classroom. And I think, as the superintendent said, there could be a case where there might be 2 teachers doing remote instruction from a classroom, but again, they'd be very easy to keep masks on and stay well over 6 feet apart if there's a couple teachers in one room. So I just wanted to clarify that's what I was saying. And the other thing that has been a topic of conversation has, just to say it, has been the question of equity has come up in terms of if we're saying that teachers who teach elementary students, you have to come back for April 5th, but we're saying to high school teachers, you don't have to come back until whenever, late April or May. I just wanted to say that has come up in our conversations as well.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So then the teachers will have to teach concurrently, right? They have to teach the to remote and also to hybrid, right?
Yes.
So don't you find that to be a challenge? I mean,
Well,
that,
we're providing a lot of professional development for the staff to do that, as well as the technology to execute that. But that's the only way we can keep the same teacher with the kids and have the consistency and the quality program. So it is a challenge, but it's doable because of the technology.
yeah, and I feel like too, the students are gonna feel left out more or less. If they're home and their friends are in the classroom, they're gonna feel left out. I just think this is gonna be a real problem.
We're training folks so we can execute that as well as we can. These are difficult times. This is not without challenges, but we feel we can execute it well.
So the week of the 29th, when the teachers are back in the classroom, what are the students, what are they gonna be doing?
So the students, the teachers will be continuing with the remote classes for all of our students. Just doing it from the classroom. A lot of districts have done this all along. The teachers have been coming into the buildings.
No. Also, my next question, is there a way we can get a breakdown of the number of students per grade that we received a survey?
I could definitely provide a number of responses by grade. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fitch. Any other questions?
Mayor.
Barbara, were you asking per grade level? Like how many sixth graders have said they're coming, how many fifth? Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, from the first phase in, from kindergarten to sixth.
How many at each level?
Yes.
We know it's about 50-50, given everybody. Is that the same for fifth grade, sixth grade? Yeah, I see what you're asking.
Yeah.
May I? Thank you, Mary. So, and I don't know if this was spelled out, but if our city experiences an increase in cases for whatever reason, hopefully we do not, and we go backwards, where does the decision lie with next steps? Do we, like the commissioner beforehand had some authority or, would give a directive like, okay, you have to stop sports, or this is what would happen? With this new mandate by DESE, where does that decision making lie? Is that something that the superintendent has the authority to make? Like, you know what, we're in this place where things are escalating, we're outbreaking. Does that lie with us, or is that now in DESE's hands because of this most recent ruling?
So if we had an outbreak, we'd be looking school by school at that, Denise. It's an excellent question. And working with the health commissioner to address that. So if the health commissioner made a decision, we had to shut down a class or a given school, then we would shut down that school and we'd inform the commissioner for a certain period of time due to, the contact tracing that they'll be engaged in. So we'd be working with the health commissioner on that on a school by school basis, based on outbreaks in the classrooms or schools and based on the contact tracing.
And this plan, Superintendent, that you have before us this evening, this can only be implemented if the waiver is granted.
Yeah. Well, we would suggest the best way to implement this plan is with a waiver.
And what if the waiver isn't granted?
If the waiver isn't granted, we'd have to do a full reopening and we would be ready.
By April 5th?
Yes, for those grades, absolutely.
Denise brought up a good point in what she was talking about. Are we going to do that full contract tracing that they've been talking about?
Yep.
So where they test 20 kids?
We're going to do the testing and both sets of testing. We bought into the pool testing. We also bought into the Binance if it shows up. So again, Jeannie Clancy, we see an outbreak in a particular class, a particular school. She's going to work with Helen on that, and we'll make decisions to keep everyone safe. Who might need, where we need to close something down, that kind of thing.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. When we talked about, I'm kind of going back to the face mask thing again. When we talked about the face mask, did we specify and Melinda, Attorney Phelps might be able to help us with this a little bit. Did we specify exactly what constituted a face covering or a face mask?
Melinda, I might be able to answer that.
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Jo.
I have the policy in front of us. Yes, we do have, it does identify what a face mask is, and we are actually, it's going to be, since the CDC has updated its guidance as well as DESE, we've got a proposed amendment to that, which has the updated definition of it. We're removing the term face covering from the policy, which was something from the Mass Association School Committee template policy, and we are going just with a face mask. But so, yes, the state has very specific guidance on what should be a face mask, and that is incorporated in the policy.
Thank you.
If we came in with one that didn't meet the requirement, we provide them with it.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up question. I think it's kind of similar to what Mrs. Hurst asked. And it was pretty much, what is our shutdown guidance if there's an outbreak? So it might be asking an extra step as far as, I'm assuming DESE hasn't provided any guidance because we haven't seen it, but if something were to happen where there was an outbreak in a building, what would happen? What does that process look like? And at what time does the school or district have to shut down if there was going to be an outbreak?
So DESE has talked about that in some of our meetings. We would again work with Jeannie Clancy and Helen to deal with a class or school level situation. And the decision would be made on the health and science. We have the testing available and we follow the protocols through our health department, again, working with our nursing supervisors.
Ms. Taylor, the few times that we've had to do that here pertaining to the city hall or city operations, the contact tracing, the shutdown, and coordinating with Helen, with Patrick Sullivan, the immediate clean that goes on, and then we were able to turn that around within a day or two. So we have a process. We hope it doesn't. Ms. Hurst, it was a good question to ask. If it does occur, we have a process of what we do immediately to interact on that situation.
May we have a copy of that process, please?
You can talk to Helen and Pat about it.
Yeah, we'll get something.
And Jeannie Clancy.
Jeannie Clancy's on now. So Jeannie, if we could work with Helen to get the school.
Helen and Pat Roach, yeah. I know
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Schwartz.
May I? So we also heard during the public speak out, and I think Ms. Naylor asked about the face mask. We also heard from one educator about the headsets. And I remember us having a conversation about that with respect to like the high school students and the fact that there might be this potential that they'd be sitting in a classroom where they would be learning, that they would be Zooming in order to sort of not be transitioning between classes. Are we going to provide our educators with that technology?
Yes, we're purchasing everything for that, yes. In all the cases where we feel that's needed, we're already making the purchase to buy that. It's going to be especially needed, like you said, at the high school level, Denise, when they first come back. So we're ready to go with that.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one last question.
Okay, then I'll go to Ms. Taylor and I'll go to discretion.
The last question is, I know that there was a list that we received earlier, probably during executive session, which gave us an outline of the teachers or in the paras who had requested to, for childcare reasons or at-risk family members. Can we have a breakdown of that number sent to us so that we can get an understanding of the difference between how big that number is, I guess, is what I'm concerned about. Attorney Phelps?
Can I just remind the school committee members that what's discussed in executive session should stay in executive session and not in public session?
Sorry, I didn't know if it, because I didn't say anything specific. Well, I didn't. Well, anyways, but my general question is that I know we've been given that information, but we haven't seen a breakdown of it. And I wanted to know if we can get a breakdown of that number.
Perfectly appropriate to ask the question without reference to executive session. So,
Okay.
you know,
Sorry.
just for the future, Ms. Naylor, just, you know, ask your question, but don't reference that it came from anything that was said or revealed to you during executive session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell, for the clarification. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Ms. Gresham?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the bus drivers know what's expected of them with respect to reopening? Because I'm getting calls that they don't know anything about what's going on.
I would have to defer, Pat Roach is on, Pat's working with the bus company and the bus drivers, so in the process of recalling them now, so they probably haven't had the training.
Mr. Roach?
Pat?
The bus company is aware of everything. I'm not sure what they message to their drivers.
Well, according to the drivers, they haven't heard anything from their supervisor or manager or whoever's over them. So is there a way we can make sure that the bus drivers know what's expected of them? Because they're saying they are the ones that's going to see the students first.
Right.
Yep, I'd be happy to follow back up with the bus company.
All right, thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Thank you, Mr. Gresham. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion on the floor?
I'm sorry. I do have a question.
First.
We had a breakdown the last two meetings ago, or the last meeting, regarding the numbers for students and whether or not they have changed or not. And I remember the superintendent saying that we would get that. Has it changed at all, or is it still right up the middle, 50-50?
It's stayed pretty close to that and across all the levels, but Paul can speak to it better than me. So Paul, you can give a better answer to that one than I can.
Yeah, we can get you, I mean, first thing in the morning, I'm happy to get you a full report on where we are with the survey. But what I can say is across all grade level, I think almost every grade level, if not every grade level, is between 48 and 52% opting for fully remote. So it's very, very close to what it was 2 weeks ago.
Across special ed, you know, it's been very consistent across all the programs.
Can Melissa Shea send to the school committee the number of people who've applied to stay remote for medical reasons and the number of people who have been approved, and maybe break it just between secondary and elementary? I don't want to go any further because I don't want to, you get too small, you can identify people. I don't want to violate people's privacy. But could Melissa Shea send that to the school committee?
Say that again. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Collins. Say that part again.
Of teachers who have asked to just work from home due to medical reasons. The number that have been given all the documentation, and kind of split that number up and tell us how many are secondary and how many are elementary.
That would be good.
So that would be good. I agree. That would be good and that would be helpful. And I think I also want to ask, if possible, the teacher who spoke earlier this evening during the speak out and talked about the accommodations for yes, for needing an accommodation for a family member who's at high risk. What is the criteria that's being used? I like Ms. Gresham, I too have gotten some calls about the bus drivers, but I'm also getting some inquiries about teachers and staff that aren't able to remain remote, even though they have loved ones or people in their households who are who have compromised systems and other medical conditions.
Would we have HR reach out? Well, I know
They could reach out to HR and we go over the specific things.
Okay.
There's different answers for different groups based on the condition.
And would HR reach out specifically to the one that expressed the concern
Yes.
Same thing, you're gonna speak. Attorney Shea, if you could, because a couple specifically spoke, this was public speak out, not executive session. And if maybe we could double check that situation, that would be great.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
And I wanted to kind of circle back because of my bum fumble, I didn't get the question completely out. That I also wanted that breakdown of the folks who were in that last category that we talked about earlier. So if we could have that broken down as well, because it's a big difference to me if there's 15 people in that category that Mrs. Hurst is referring to versus 80. And I just wonder if there's any leeway if there are folks, the fact that we haven't been able to get our staff vaccinated and we know that they all will not be vaccinated by the mandate that DESE is asking for us to bring them back. And if they're in those situations, can't we as a school committee ask that those accommodations be adjusted for if there is a small amount and it won't inhibit the school department from being able to do what it needs to do as far as functioning?
It's my understanding from discussions we had before that, let's say it was myself requesting, I could request it because I have a health condition, or if my spouse partner had a health condition, I could make that. So there are two different categories to make the request. If I didn't make it clear before when I was asking Melissa to send us the information, I meant for both those categories, for people who it's themselves or for people who it's a household member.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that because I didn't understand the question to be that way. And I guess when I think about this, the differences, and I know HR has their way of looking at it, but when you have somebody who's dependent on you to be taking care of them, it's not the same as having an uncle or cousin in the house that might have an at-risk, they can take care of themselves. But if you have a child or if you have an elderly parent that can't take care of themselves and you have to have your hands on them and everything, that is a different situation. And I don't think that these teachers are asking not to work. They're asking to still be able to do their jobs. So if we were to review that and then think about whether it be waiting until they can get vaccinated as an option and not just a full no, you got to take FMLA, I think that is where my biggest concern is for folks like Mr. Minta, who came and is a wonderful teacher, does phenomenal work and is saying, I don't want to necessarily leave my students, but if I have to, I got to make a choice, right? Because I have a child I have to take care of. So that's just a real situation for a lot of people. And I think these different times calls for us to think of things differently. And how can we be proactive in supporting our staff and showing me value and appreciate them?
Agreed. May I ask a question either for the superintendent or Attorney Shea? So how much, perhaps percentage, what is the percentage of the workforce that would not be returning?
So Melissa, did you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. Are you talking about the folks that are being approved for their remote request? For the authorization that we've been provided previously? Yeah, that's about 8%. I want to say 8 to 9% of Unit A.
So I guess my question is, like, for the families that we just heard from that Ms. Naylor was talking about, if we only have 50% of our students returning, do we need 92% of our staff to return if there is a percentage that fall within that 92% that need to be able to remain remote because of secondary conditions like family conditions?
We need staff. We're going to need staff in the buildings to provide services to our kids that are there. So we have to be careful of how wide you open this remote piece, because then I think the request would increase dramatically and you wouldn't have the staff to run the buildings. So many systems didn't even allow the remote accommodation at all. We were much more liberal than many other districts with this. But we have an array of different fees we're offering, but if we just open up remote for every possible circumstance, you wouldn't have enough folks in the building to run the district.
Superintendent, with all due respect, that's not at all what we're asking. We have a set number of folks that have already requested, and I've said that they need an accommodation, and it's not a large number. And if we could consider that small number only because nobody else has requested, then I don't think we're doing a disservice to anybody but our students, because they're the ones that are going to miss out if those teachers have to then be forced to go into FMLA or have a long-term sub who has no idea what they're teaching the kids. So at the end of the day, our kids are going to suffer. So I'm not just, I mean, as much as I am thinking about our staff, I'm thinking about our students as well. And I just think if that number, if we were to say anybody who wants remote, that's a different conversation. We're not asking that at all by any stretch of the imagination. We're saying we have a handful of people, when you look at the number of staff we have, that are saying, I have a dependent that's relying on me that has a situation. Can you please accommodate me? I think saying yes to accommodate them for a few weeks or a month is not pulling teeth on our end. And I think we should be able to accommodate that if there's any way possible. And it sounds to me that there should be a leverage because we're only going to have 50% of our kids in the building.
There's a little, I think there's a little confusion here, the fact that we've got 50% returning live. 100% of our kids are still have to be educated. It took a certain number of teachers to educate that 100% of kids. Now, if I'm an elementary child and I go into my 4th grade classroom and my teacher's staying home and teaching me remote, I'm sitting in the classroom watching a TV screen with my teacher at home. And I'm in the classroom. That's a little odd as well. Each one of those cases, I think, is unique. It depends upon what the individual does, the individual teacher does, as to whether to say there's a blanket way to give it, because each case is kind of unique. And I think we have to consider both the student. If my teacher's not there, I'm watching from screen, even though I'm in school. How long before we have a little bit of anarchy from those parents and those kids saying, well, wait a minute, I got to go to school. I don't know. It's just, we have to look at each case, I think, individually. There's no one set answer.
That's also the proper documentation to back up what the situation is, that HR will look specifically at those situations.
So I understand what you're saying, Chris, but I also think that it calls for us to be perhaps a bit more innovative, and like Ms. Naylor said, to sort of figure out how we can make it work versus why it can't work. And so if we have a classroom where the teacher is remaining remote and there are, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 4th graders in that classroom, can they be deployed to other classrooms, right? How can we figure out how to make it work? Because I think that what we're seeing is that the cookie cutter approach of sending, everybody back in to the building may not work, because there are some really unique circumstances for people, in particular teachers and families, which is why I'm guessing that we have 50% of families that are also opting to stay home.
What I'm saying is kind of like what you're saying. Every situation is unique, not only from the perspective of the employee, from the perspective of the children in the classroom. And you have to let the building manager also kind of if it's 50, if there's 10 kids in that classroom that there's no teacher, and you're going to go put them in one of the other course, there's only 2 4th grades. Now they've got double the number. They've got basically the whole 50%. And does it work in that classroom? So each particular instance needs to be looked at for its own. And so we can't make a blanket decision. I think they have to make a decision looking at all the particulars, both the employees and the school and the students' perspective, and there's not one answer is what I'm trying to say. Every one of those has got to be handled separately and uniquely.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying as well. That we can't just have a blanket no, and you have to take it from LA, that we need to look at each circumstance from a different perspective. And also understanding that if that teacher's not there, they're going to be getting a substitute anyways.
Just if you look at the physical plant, the layout, that's why building management is so crucial on a physical plant layout. If you did that and say, geez, we're going to move those 6 or 8 kids into this classroom. Now what comes into play is that we're going to try to stay 6 feet, 6 foot distance. Now what comes into play is that you got to cut it down to 3 feet. And then so it's got to be a situational type look, and again, on specific cases or specialized cases. I know HR, the proper backup is provided, the reasoning why it should be considered. HR will consider that. We'll consider that. But Superintendent Walk is correct. Other school systems have not done that. It was an all or nothing. And so we're trying to be as accommodating as we can.
We'll continue to have HR look at every case and try to come up with something and do the best we can with it.
At least until we can get them vaccinated, which hopefully, will be a few weeks in, but that's just my major delay, really, when we think about voting on reopening. That's a big thing for me, that it kind of hinges on what I want to decide, because I'm concerned about forcing people back, and we're red. And now, if we weren't red, we'd be having a different conversation, but we are still red, and we hope we're not going to be in a month, but we could be. And they're not vaccinated, and they can't be vaccinated because we don't have enough vaccinations. That's scary. And so that's all that I'm trying to push. I completely understand what you're dealing with, and I know it's not easy, and I know what we're asking there's not a simple response to it. So I don't want to make it feel like we're trying to make it more hard, but at the same time, I just want to make sure that we're airing out all of our perspectives so that we can be as mindful as possible as we move forward.
I couldn't, Latonia, I couldn't agree any more with you on that. And thank you, Governor Baker. Every other state put teachers up, not every other state, but the majority of them moved teachers up very quickly. And we're supposed to be progressive here, and we wait. And we say, no, teachers, it doesn't matter. We're going to do later. And then open your school. It makes me so angry. And usually, I think Governor Baker's done a fairly good job, but they have completely booted the ball on this. Completely booted the ball.
Chris, I happen to really agree with you about that. I am extremely angry as well. I think that, it is a real slap in the face to have had the DESE board to vote the way that they did. And in particular, when you're talking about an urban district, a city that is still in the red, such as ours, we know that education is essential. We also know that there has been, some real pros and cons to being remote. But if in fact we truly believe, right, that education is essential, and this is why DESE has mandated us to go back into the classroom by April 5th, then they should have prioritized our teachers. They're essential workers, and that give us 4 dates, 2 of which are after the day in which they need to return. And then release, I think it was today, right? That 40,000 vaccinations had been released and they were already gone. So when exactly are they supposed to go and do this? We have 1 site in Western Mass, in Springfield. Thank you, Mayor, for that. However, we have 1 site. It's not just Springfield Public School teachers that are going to be trying to access that site. I mean, we're talking about people having to go to Gillette and everywhere else in order to get these vaccinations. It's a step, it truly is a step in the face. And that's why I said earlier, it feels like yet another unfunded mandate. We're going to mandate you to do this, but we're not going to give you the interventions, the resources, the tools to get this done. And then we're going to threaten you with a fee on top of that and an additional hours that will not count towards learning. It's inequitable.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
That's the kindest word you could have used.
And we're on Zoom.
We need to levity. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question, sir.
I also just really quickly, Ms. Naylor, just want to say to the superintendent, you know, this is no, you know, we know how hard you and your team have worked. I think that I just want to make sure that you know that we know how hard you all have worked, right? And how hard the teachers and the unions and everyone has worked to sort of figure this out so that people can be comfortable, right? We need our teachers to feel safe, to feel comfortable in order for them to be productive in front of our students. And so that is not lost on me. I just want to make sure that you know that, superintendent, and those who are in the viewing audience.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Ms.
Do you
Smith.
think we're frustrated? Imagine how the staff feels who spend a whole week planning something and then Desi calls and says, oh no, redo it. And then they spend another week, oh no, redo it. It's nuts.
Well, not to mention the fact that, you know, they have pediatricians and all these other people who are getting up there from the other part of the state who don't have no clue about the challenges we have. We have the asthma capital of the state, you know, right here in Holyoke and Springfield, and it's not even mentioned or acknowledged of the challenges that folks face here. So that's another whole rant. I can go on for another 2 hours. But my question is, what happens if we say no, we don't agree with this reopening plan?
Well, I think
we have to reopen anyway, but we certainly like you to say yes to it. But the truth is, we have to reopen it.
Mayor, can
I don't think we've got the budget to say no.
Ms. Naylor, before I go to Attorney Murphy, two things. It's an order. So we have to reopen. We're trying to be as thoughtful as possible. That 1.5 million a day cuts into the budget, which means a lot of things in the school department. The other thing too, whatever way we do have a pathway of on a transition, we have to give parents some sense of continuity, some sense of timing, some sense of structure, so they can plan for their child, he or she, when in, when out, and remote, so the proper strategic moves can be made. So those are the two things that we have to deal with now. But again, it is an order. A $1.5 million fine daily will occur, which would come out of the school budget. Number two, we continue on the way we are. Any education does not count toward the students and families teaching, which means we'll have to continue to go to school throughout the summer. So, I mean, we're putting everything on the table here. We're trying to be as thoughtful as possible. These cards, dealt, we're not controlling the deal here. A lot of things occurred when you're flying a plane as you're building it, but that's where we're at. So to say, hey, we're not going to do it, we're going to get fined every day, $1.5 million. Okay, you're not going to do it on top of that? You go another 30 days or 45 days, whatever it is, remote teaching the kids. We're not counting it towards this kid's education. So if you want a full year, you're going to have to extend to June, July, into August if you want your students. This is the deck the cards we've been dealt with right now. So we feel we have a strong case to put across the hybrid form, the transitional aspect. We've gone above and beyond on all the physical plan aspects, the ventilation. There's more than enough of the PPEs on it, and we're going to try to be as accommodating as we can. If a parent wants their student to stay remote, they can stay remote. We've, I know it's multiple times, it's 3 times, on the transportation if you are qualified, and then we go from there. That's what we're dealing with now. So say that the vote is a down vote here.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, can you clarify the vote? Is the vote to accept the superintendent's hybrid plan, or is the vote to request a waiver?
On here is an approved vote. both the school reopening plan and we're gonna put it on the waiver.
Request a vote
On the waiver.
I'm so sorry.
It's voting on the school reopening plan, which comes in term that we're requesting a waiver to come back in a hybrid back.
We built the waiver into the reopening plan, with the waiver information.
So it's.
But the waiver was added into this plan.
Yes.
We only need one vote.
Right.
By voting, we are voting to accept your plan and telling you to apply for the waiver.
That was in the presentation adjustment that we would ask for the waiver.
And as distasteful as we may all find the way this is forced on us, today's the 10th. The parents need, it's a month from now, that this is going to be forced upon everybody. They need time to plan. So,
May I ask our attorneys a question?
Sure.
I don't know if it's Melinda or Attorney Kennedy or Attorney.
Attorney Kennedy. Go ahead, Mr. President.
I guess my question is, and the mayor said it, or the mayor just said it, right? That this is an order. So if it's an order, what does our vote weigh? What does it? How does our vote count?
So Desi's guidance indicates that a school committee vote would be necessary with regards to a waiver. But they did allow that you could, because if a school committee wasn't scheduled to meet, the district could go ahead, or a district could go ahead and file the request for a waiver, because there is a deadline to file, and then seek school committee approval afterwards. But I think the prudent thing to do is to get school committee approval to file and then file it. That's what this process is. I do think also, the question was asked, what type of, I think it was Ms. Naylor, what would happen if you don't vote? I think that in addition to the $1.2 million fine, you'd probably also be sued by a group of parents or 10 taxpayers for failing to educate children who reside in the city of Springfield. I mean, I think that, and certainly other school committee attorneys or attorneys, that's what's been talked about as a potential across the state. So that's a major concern, because those are constituents basically versus the school committee saying you are, by not agreeing to the mandate or by not following the mandate, your responsibility and the city's responsibility is to educate every eligible child between the ages of 6 and 16 who are residents in the city of Springfield. And if learning hours don't count, you're not educating those kids.
we are actually, I think, by voting to accept this plan, still fighting the commissioner, because we're voting a hybrid plan and asking for the waiver, where he said, open up. So I think we're still standing our ground to try to do what's best for our system and saying, no, we can't open fully. We're asking for a phased-in hybrid plan.
Okay, you want to give it legal weight to the lawsuit. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for Attorney Phelps. So if we vote present, how would that affect it?
No vote.
Voting present is not a yes vote.
I have a question. Not my only one, but did I hear that that there is a potential that we would go through the summer? That there
Take up the days in the summer.
And how would we do that if the teacher contract expires on like June 30th?
Desi would just mandate it. We'd have to make up the time.
And Mrs. Gresham, if my answer to you was not fully complete, a present vote is not, I answered saying it's not a yes vote. It's also not a no vote. So
where would that put us? So where would that?
Well, a motion needs 4 affirmative votes to pass.
Right.
Say that again, what? Say that, Attorney what?
I said, if there's a motion made, it would need 4 votes in order to pass, 4 affirmative votes,
4 yes votes.
or yes votes. Yeah, affirmative.
Thank you, Attorney Phelps.
So if it's a mandate and we don't vote yes, then it doesn't go through unless we vote yes? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they're not gonna accept, I'll tell you one thing, they're probably not gonna accept the hybrid form. Maybe he can submit it. You can submit it.
No, it can't, because
No,
it's
yeah,
not part
because
of the
it's part of
plan.
the plan, so they're gonna say, technically, you didn't okay a plan which included hybrid, so April 5th, everybody's in the boat, everybody gets in the boat, gotta be in there.
Can we just approve the hybrid plan?
So you can't.
Waiver.
You don't want to approve the waiver? You can't split the vote. You can't split the vote. I knew that was, you can't split it. Because they're gonna say you voted down your plan to reopen, but yet you voted the hybrid, which was part of your plan to reopen.
You can't
split the
You
vote.
can't submit a waiver without a plan. So your waiver would be immediately denied because you don't have a plan to attach to it. In order to apply for the waiver, you have to have a plan. So if we don't vote the plan, but say, go get a waiver, they're gonna say no in 2 seconds because there's no plan attached to it.
I guess what I'm asking is, can we approve it with a contingency if they accept the waiver? Or do we have to just say, yeah, and then wait, and then you let us know?
The commissioners did
accepted
give a strong indication, Latonia, that due to our circumstances being remote, that they would highly likely approve the waiver. So I'm very confident that if we submitted a plan and a waiver, they'll give us a waiver. That relationship.
They're right now,
We've mentioned that as an example several times in all of our meetings. So yeah, I think he'll accept the waiver.
and the bottom line, you gotta count the votes, you gotta count the numbers. They have the hammer. They have the hammer. So either way, you follow through, or you're gonna get fined whatever 1.2, 1.5 a day, and they're gonna say, I don't care if you felt you taught your kids, your students, 28 days, doesn't count. If you want those kids to move on to next grade or graduate, you're gonna have to extend your school session into July and into August.
We'd be the only one in the state out there on that. I just think the ramifications for Bessie would be usually problematic.
Mr. Superintendent, what is the deadline? And when are they going to render a decision?
Render a decision on the waiver, Denise?
Yeah. Yes.
They said they would probably act on the waivers within 5 days of submission. We wanted to get it in right away because we're coming right up to our deadline anyway, because they gave us this information very late. So we wanted to get the waiver in right away so we get a decision. We don't want to be trying to decide on a waiver and getting the information of the waiver right as we're trying to open schools and we don't know. The parents need to know, are you opening full 5 days a week or are you in a hybrid? They've got to know that stuff ahead of time. They can't find out that at the very last minute. So we want to submit the waiver right away.
So I guess so the better question would be, based on what Attorney Phelps just said, is that you could still submit the waiver and we could still reconvene to vote based on the decision that comes back from DESE on whether the waiver was granted.
Except the fact that the plan, you have to submit a plan as well.
You have to submit the plan with the waiver.
With the waiver.
Got it.
It's a little bit of a circular argument.
If you can't, yeah.
Or not a little bit, it is.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, could I?
Sheriff, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Just to circle back, I mean, I was also concerned about what the motion was going to look like. But I do think that with respect to the flexibility around the way Corona impacts our teachers and our employees and their families, I think we certainly should have flexibility there. And I think our HR department has shown that over the years, we certainly should give folks that are in a difficult position, family-wise, options to potentially be remote or to have some funds coming their way so that we can bridge this gap, so to speak. I also would just suggest that, these are unprecedented times, and there are a lot of people that are relying on our decision. If you think about the numbers, which I think about, there's 26,000 children in our system. There's parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters and guardians that assist those people every day. And then there are employees and their families. So there are literally 50, 60, 70,000 people who are relying in some ways on the decision that we make. So in my own assessment, I do think we owe them a decision, although if there was some reason to delay the decision, I would not necessarily be opposed to that. But I do think that, Holyoke is back, is my understanding. Chicopee is back. Lynn is back. Boston is back, at least hybrid. And we're going to have to be flexible. So I just personally, I think I appreciate all the work that everyone has done, from top to bottom on this reopening plan under very difficult and challenging times. And constantly the needle is moving with respect to the pandemic. So, I just, if there's going to be a vote, I guess I'm asking, the vote would be to approve the reopening plan, which is a request for a hybrid to the state. And if that doesn't happen, it is full-fledged reopening as of April 5th. I mean, is that fair to say?
I believe so. I'd have to defer to Melinda on that, but.
Yeah, I was just pulling up the DESE guidance, and it says, because the regulations have the force of law, once the commissioner made the determination that hybrid and remote learning will no longer count towards structured learning time unless you have a waiver. A school committee vote on which learning model to adopt is not necessary because full-time in-person learning will be the default model.
So if I understand you correctly, Attorney Phelps, if we don't vote for the hybrid waiver, we could potentially be mandated to return full time.
That's right. It has the force of law as of March 5th. Well, it has the force of law now, just in terms of the dates by which compliance must be made with the force of law. This is the law of the Commonwealth.
So we're up against the wall. That's it. I mean, that's the bottom line here.
Yeah.
I mean, teachers are not vaccinated, but yet we got to vote. We're up against the wall. It infuriates me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is there a motion on the floor, please?
I would make a motion that we approve the plan presented, which includes the hybrid, the requesting a waiver. The plan presented was to open and hybrid.
Right.
And request a waiver.
Request the waiver. Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second, please? Say again, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yep. Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
No.
Ms. Gresham,
I can't, in the depths of my heart, teachers aren't vaccinated. I cannot vote for this. I just can't. My vote is no.
Ms. Perez, absent. Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, one insufficient vote. This matter passed. Thank you. We'll move to informational items. Homer DeBerry School Project Update. I know it's near and dear to Barbara. Discretion.
Yes, yes, it is.
Brightwood Lincoln Update. I know that's dear to Ms. Perez. If you're watching, we hope you feel better. So let me turn it over to, I know, Donna Tedisco and the rest of the crew here. And I want to thank Pete Garvey, all the work he's continued to do too. Superintendent Warren.
Yeah, the teams have done a great job on this. We've been very, very fortunate, working with Danisco Design on both of these projects and with the teams that have been moving forward on it. So Donna's here tonight with the team to give you an update on the projects. Like the mayor said, I think Maria took the lead in the north end and did a great job organizing the parents and getting community input. Barbara's done a fabulous job in the Mason Square neighborhood, leading that parent effort relative to making these programs a success. So I'd like to turn it over to Danisco Design to go over the projects now. As a point, I went through several times in the north end and looked at the project as it's coming along. And it's absolutely spectacular. So again, wide open to give tours to anyone that wants to see it. But that project is coming along in a spectacular manner. And the plans on DeBerry and Homer are equally wonderful. So I'm gonna, without further ado, turn it over to Danisco Design.
And I thank Myron Hatch. Myron's been fantastic too.
There's Myron. That's right, there you are. And Pete Garvey's team and all of our consultants, Skanska, the entire team has done great jobs. O'Connell Construction and I think Fontaine on the planning relative to the Barry Homer. So I just want to commend everybody and then turn it over to them for the presentation.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And hopefully this is something a little more positive, and hopefully soon. I know Brightwood will be complete this year, and hopefully we will be able to fully enjoy this come September. So I just commend you all, and then to add this to everything else that you're going through, you guys are remarkable. We have both the DeBerry and Homer update, and we also have the Brightwood Lincoln. I was kind of torn, which do we want to show first? I'm actually tempted, if it's okay with you, to maybe share what Brightwood and Lincoln actually look like. We have a quick presentation. We'll walk you through the construction. So that might help you visualize what it is that we're planning on doing with Brightwood and with DeBerry and Homer, if that's okay with you.
I think is the opportunity to see it.
You can actually see it.
But to see what's being done.
Right.
Donna, so thank you for that.
Okay. So I think Tim Cooper from our team was going to share that. Do you want us to bring this up on our screens, or do you have the presentation? I think we'll bring it up. Tim, can you pull up your presentation?
I will attempt to share my screen. Can you?
No, Tim, we're not getting it yet.
1 second.
I took him off guard, I think.
Do you have it now?
No. All right. So while you're trying to pull it up, Tim.
Do you want me to try to pull it up for you, Donna?
If you could, that would be awesome.
Okay, we're doing
To the
Brightwood.
rescue. Yes.
Brightwood Lincoln.
Oh, Tim. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
There we go.
Patty, you're the best.
Good
That's
job.
not me.
Good job, Patty.
Even put up with me.
Second try always works.
The Etch-a-Sketch is able to do that.
Okay. So here we are starting from the view from Kennebec Park across Plainfield Street. looking from the northwest. At the center of the view of the building is the Brightwood entrance. And we're just gonna quickly take a walk around the building, if you will. Here we are at the start of the drive that all of the parents that choose to drop off will use. You're on the Brightwood side of the school. At the end of the building is the stair that the teachers will enter as they walk from the teacher parking on the north. The Brightwood entrance is at the canopy that it's under construction, just to the left of the red pickup truck there. And then as we continue to go around the building, this is from the northeast corner of the site across the relocated soccer field, looking at the playground behind Brightwood. And then behind the playground, you can see the entrance to the gymnasium, which has a separate lobby. Traveling down south behind the building on the loop that the parents will use to drop off kids, we are now looking north at the gym. There's a separate entrance where both the Lincoln and Brightwood students will be dropped off. This plaza will have planters in it with pavers. You can see the site all around it, progress. The playground equipment is in the coming weeks and months. The rest of the sidewalks will be installed and planting will go in all the way around the building. Now we're moving inside, starting with the classrooms. This is one of the kindergarten classrooms on the first floor, which is the same size as the pre-K classrooms. In the coming weeks, casework and all of the teaching technology will be installed on the walls. This is one of the grade level typical classrooms on the upper floors. This is on the third floor, actually looking over the Brightwood playground. You can see storage and the sinks that will be in each room and the built-in teacher desk and storage. In front of the shelving that you see there, there will be sliding marker boards that will conceal storage. Looking to the other wall in a typical classroom, there is the Promethean on an adjustable mount for the grade level that you're in, whiteboards and tack boards on either side. The ceilings are about to go in, and pretty soon we'll have a real classroom here. This is a node. It's an area that's unprogrammed in the circulation between the two buildings. You can start to see some of the finishes that will be in the building throughout. The tile selectively used for pops of colors, the lighting fixtures that are used in many of the public spaces. These are in the cafeteria, the lobbies, outside the gym. This is one of the project areas outside of a cluster of 3 classrooms. This space is repeated throughout the buildings where teachers can do some pull-out learning out there. The kids can get organized as they enter their classrooms. There's storage for all of the kids. Each kid has his own locker. As we continue to walk through the corridors, this is outside the media center on the 2nd floor. The hall widens to make a more inviting space. There will be seating built in where the tile is. And now we step into the media center, which looks out over Plainfield Street. In the open space by the glass that you see here, there will be furniture for small groups, bookshelves, and then within the media center, there are 2 dedicated teaching spaces the size of classrooms that will have the full complement of teaching technology. Here is an art room. There are 2 of these adjacent to the media center. There's storage for student work, and then the 2 art rooms share storage space between them. Here we are in the cafeteria. You are looking from the Lincoln cafeteria toward the stage that will be used for assemblies. When both of the cafeterias are open to each other, there is a movable partition between what is the 2 spaces pictured here that will open up, that will allow the entire school to come together when that's wanted. And then here's a picture of the gym that you could see earlier behind the Brightwood playground equipment. 6,000 square feet. It's the size of a regulation high school basketball court, and there are bleachers on the left in the alcove that you can see in the corner of the picture. North facing light, there should never be any glare, and it's easily accessible for permitted use. We're almost done. Substantial completion is June 30th. They will start moving furniture in the middle of June, and the building will be ready to use in the fall, and we're all very excited.
Thank you, Tim. So that it will be interesting as you visualize what we're going to share now, which is the design and of the DeBerry and Homer, which you'll start to see, wow, that actually does look like what it's really going to look like now that we have that. So I think, Tim, I'm going to try to share my screen, I think. Let's give this a shot. I'm going to stop yours and make sure I pick the right one. Is it everyone able to see this? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. So not much has changed with our design as we've just recently been before you, but we're still really excited to share the updates as we're finishing the design. And it's really hard to believe it's been 2 years. We'll soon be into construction. As everyone's familiar, that this is the existing site with Hancock along to the west and St. John's Church. We have Monroe Street. We have the existing school, their parking, their play areas. We have Eastern Ave and then Union Street to the south. And as we look closer to the building, just want to point out some points right now. Monroe Street is currently a two-way street. Eastern Ave is two-way and Union is one-way. The proposed site plan has not changed at all. We actually did have a community meeting, I think it was just last week. So we have been sharing this with the community as well. The Monroe Street, we plan on converting into a one-way street. Given the number of students, there'll be 800 students coming down. We felt that the circulation patterns required Monroe to be converted to one way for the safety of the local traffic as well as the school traffic. We have created a cutout along Monroe Street so as not to interfere with traffic passing through for parent drop-off. We have two entries, one for each school. This is the Homer School, this is the DeBerry School for the parent drop-off and the students to enter the schools. As you travel along Union Street, this will remain one way, but we wanted to also make sure that the buses did not interfere with passing traffic. So we've created also a bus drop-off loop out in the front to allow the buses to get off the street so as not to interfere with the traffic. We also have handicap and visitor parking along this area. For those students that require additional time for exiting the buses or loading or unloading the buses, we also are providing an additional area for drop-off for the students along the entry into the parking lot. And these students can exit the buses and then enter directly into the school. We have two playgrounds very similar to Brightwood and Lincoln, one for each school for the older students. And we also have playgrounds for the younger pre-K students. We have bike racks for each school. We also have planters with raised beds for both schools. And as you can see, we will have equipment, play equipment, as well as basketball courts for all the students. All of the play areas will be fenced in for their safety. Once the DeBerry School is actually demolished, we'll complete the project and put in a parking lot for approximately 165 vehicles. The layout has not changed, and it's very similar to that of Brightwood. We have each school, both Homer and DeBerry, will have 3 classrooms per grade with the project area supporting the grade cluster, as you just saw. The main administration for each school will be at the very entry for welcoming visitors and students. There is this double vestibule that visitors will enter. There'll be a transaction window at the general office to allow them in, check their credentials, and once they have been validated, they'll be able to enter into the full building. The cafeteria and gym are shared core spaces, and when those are in use for community, both schools can be locked down so that we don't have wanderers into the academic wings. The second floor is organized very similarly. We have 3 classrooms per grade with the project areas, and we have our special ed and mental health suites, one for each school on the second floor. Easy access to the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, the 1st floor, and the administration offices. We have the media center in the center, obviously, for shared core use. We have a music room and an art room per school. I did forget to mention, we have an elevator as well as you enter the building or both buildings. We have an elevator here for Homer and an elevator here for DeBerry. The 3rd floor is all academic spaces, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. They have each a STEM classroom each to support the upper grades, and we have a literacy library to support the staff for professional development and literacy support. And just real quickly for the roof, it's not very glamorous, but we wanted to just demonstrate that we have located all of the rooftop equipment centrally located to allow future solar panels should the city desire to add those to the project later. These are the elevations along Union Street. This will be where the bus drop-off is. We have an entry for the DeBerry to the east or the right and Homer to the left. We have the core. You can see that the materials we're using is slightly different to highlight and celebrate the core area. The cafeteria is on the 1st floor and the library is almost a 2-story height area space. And then we have the classroom wings on both sides. Along Monroe Street will be the parent drop-off area. Again, they will have individual parent or student entries along there. And then this is the gymnasium. And similar to Brightwood, we will also be able to take advantage of the northern light entering into the gymnasium for great lighting without any glare. This is the view from Union Street. We're actually pretty much standing at the corner of Eastern and Union Street. You can see the fenced in areas for the play areas and where the buses will pull in for drop off and pickup. This is a close-up view of the DeBerry School. This is the cafeteria, and this is the entry where there'll be an A phone. They get buzzed in, they'll enter the vestibule, and then there'll be another check before they are welcomed into the school. And very similar on the Homer side. What we also have is we have the sunshades, which will help promote the natural light, but try to minimize the glare for these. And they're fun color pops as well to kind of brighten this elementary school and celebrate it. This is the view from Monroe Street. And this is the gym that we've actually, as everyone knows, it was originally turned, but now we've pulled it back off the street. So really to allow more buffer between the street and the school. And again, similar to the Union Street, they'll have individual drop-offs for both schools. This is the gym, which actually you see there's a theme in these colors that it will actually be brought into the school. And this is the Homer entry. And very similar to Brightwood, we have 3 classrooms per grade. We have a shared project area outside that will house the individual lockers for each of the classrooms, as well as opportunities for small group instruction, project-based learning, and in the older grades, maybe even some individual work. This is a pre-K classroom. So now you can see it really resembles what Tim was just showing you. The pre-K and kindergarten do have doors leading to the outdoors, just given they'll be locked, but those are for we have for code reasons, excuse me. And as Tim was showing, you could see the storage behind these walls. And then this will have sliding marker boards to be used. We have the same with Brightwood and Lincoln. We have the staff desk built in to allow the maximum flexibility with these spaces for small group instruction, project-based learning, and for the younger grades, the larger activities that occur. Typical standard classroom, again, not tons of natural light, lots of flexibility. The difference here compared to Brightwood is MSBA was now asking us to include 2 sinks. So this school will have 2 sinks. One's accessible. The other one will be a deeper sink for project-based learning, which in light of what's going on, it can't hurt to have an extra sink for hand washing at this point too. Exact same technology. We'll have a large flat panel on the walls that will be adjustable per grade. We have the assisted listening technology for the teacher as well as the students. And then this would be the project areas. Again, individual lockers for each of the students. And this is a magnetic whiteboard to allow for additional instruction. And you can see there's also an abundance of storage everywhere. There's never enough storage. So we're doing our best. This is just the east lobby looking towards Union Street. You can see that it's an open window to welcome guests. And prior to entering the second vestibule behind this monument, you can't see, but there's also what we would call a transaction window to verify people's credentials before they're entering. And then looking back, this shows the proximity to the cafeteria. It's a very large open area that will be a wonderful opportunity for community use assemblies where people can gather as they enter into the cafeteria. And here's the cafetorium. As similar with Brightwood, this is large enough for both schools. When cafeteria use is in session, there's this acoustic wall that will be brought all the way from this end all the way to the windows. These are the serving lines. There'll be individual serving lines for each school. So this acoustic wall will be shut during lunch. This will provide opportunity for a little more small, intimate lunch setting than having all of these students together. When appropriate, the wall can be moved back and you have this large spacious area for assemblies, for performances, for all school meetings. And this actually is going to be large enough, similar to Brightwood and Lincoln, for approximately 800 people. So it's a fabulous venue for both schools and for the community. Here's the gym, actually very similar to Brightwood. And you'll see that we're trying to keep the pop of color, that we're bringing the pop of color from the outside in. Here are the bleachers. And again, it will be a full-size regulation high school basketball court with 6 backboards. So this again will be another wonderful community asset. As Tim was showing, here's a node as on the second floor that can also be used for small group instruction, places for the students to gather, and even some project-based learning. Our goal is to take advantage of every nook and cranny of the school, maximizing the instructional opportunities and taking advantage of the circulation. This is a view of the media center. As we're looking and entering down, you can see it's very bright light, utilizing a lot of natural and light color woods. This will be hopefully the center for welcoming the children into the school. Once we're in, a little different than Brightwood is that we were able to take advantage of having a double height area in the media center. And you can see the abundance of natural light coming into the space. We have the stacks along here, and then this is really an area for children to read, to gather, to interact when this is all appropriate again, right? But we're really looking forward to celebrating this space. And looking back, we have the circulation desk in the middle, and then each school will have an instructional area, which can also support a full class, whether it's for digital literacy or other programs, as well as project-based learning. So it's incredible to say that construction is going to be here in a couple of months. It's just amazing. Time flies. But we just wanted to quickly walk through a couple of important logistics as we start preparing ourselves for construction in June. So as the existing school is going to remain in operation, our first and most important part of the construction is to create a fence that will secure the construction and keep the staff and students in the DeBerry School safe, and they can continue with their school. The teachers are going to have to relocate. We have the church across the street that this is where there will be parking, and the contractor will utilize this area here for their staff, and workers will park here. And as you can see, here's the footprint of the building. So we really are going to be utilizing every inch of this site. Just real quickly, we're putting out an early site package in April. We'll be putting up the fence in June, and we'll also have a steel and concrete package to get ahead for until our final bid documents are ready in July. So we'll start construction in June, and then in 2 years, we'll move everyone from the existing DeBerry School over to the new school. We'll start demolition of the existing school as soon as we're able to move everyone over. And then over that summer, we'll have the furniture, equipment, and setup, and the school will be ready to open the students in August of 23. Once they're in, we then have to tear down the existing building, complete the parking lot, and site work. So there is a little bit longer construction time because we have the existing building on this site. But we're really excited. Time flies. It's hard to believe it was only 2 years ago having this conversation with you. So hopefully this is better things to come for all of us. And we're really excited about it. So happy to take any questions you have.
Just if I may.
Sure.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, Donna, but we had a very good presentation last Thursday. The community is excited. It's going to be a beautiful school. And we happy that we got a start date and a completion date.
Those are 2 good dates.
Yes.
Two really good dates.
Meeting.
And it's going to happen sooner. I mean, it's a few short months. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah. It's going to be very good for the community too.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
It's a great community here. And again, to Barbara, who's really been facilitator for Homer DeBerry, and for Maria Perez, School Committee Woman Perez, who's been the facilitator, our neighborhood facilitator for Lincoln, Brightwood Lincoln. But I was telling, when we were speaking off camera, Don, I think I said it to you before, I just love the natural light, the natural light.
Yes, yes, beautiful.
And that not only for the educational component, this, as Barbara indicates, Ms. Gresham, this is another community enhancement on it. So, but let me open up to school committee members for any questions or comments you might have. And this is good news.
It is very good news. It's so nice to bring some good news for a change.
I will say, I don't have a comment. I mean, I don't have a question, Mayor, but I will say that I agree. I mean, they both look beautiful, both Lincoln and Brightwood and Homer and DeBerry. And those two in particular neighborhoods, I think will benefit greatly from having this type of investment in such, in their neighborhoods, in their communities.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Any other questions or comments on the presentations? Okay, hearing none, we'll move. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And yes, and I was
appreciate you.
Thanks, Myron. Thanks for being on, Myron, too.
You're very welcome, Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We already, in informational items, we've already really spoken about the school reopening update. So that's been already addressed in the voting items thoroughly. We'll move to reports of standing committees, please. A is student relations, parent concerns, Ms. Gresham.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. B is building maintenance committee, Vice Chair Collins.
No report other than what we heard about the buildings.
Okay. Legislative and contracts committees, Ms. Perez, and again, she's under the weather. Ms. Perez, feel better. D is curriculum programs committee, Ms. Hurst.
No report at this time, Your Mayor, but I'm hoping to connect with Vice Chair about scheduling the town hall.
Okay, thank you. E is budget and finance committee, Vice Chair Collins. I know you've spoken on a little bit.
Yeah, we've covered all the items, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Vocational education committee, Attorney Murphy.
Sorry, Mayor, no report at this time.
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. Technology committee is Ms. Naylor.
No report, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Naylor. School safety committee again is Ms. Gresham.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Gresham. Special subcommittee staff demographics, again, that's Ms. Perez, and again, we hope you're feeling better. She's under the weather. I don't know if Nazir Jennings Naz from Springfield Public Day High School is a student representative. Is he on? Naz, are you on? I think that is.
I see him. That looks like him.
Naz, did you
want to talk?
Did you have any comments, Naz, at all?
You're muted if you're trying to talk, Naz.
Well, thank you, Naz, for being on. We appreciate your involvement. We'll now move to the report of Superintendent. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. Our meals program, since we closed down, which is a year ago, by the way, we provided 6,509,404 meals to our families during this pandemic. So really proud of Pat Roach and his team and our Sodexo team for their tremendous work. Our attendance at the end of February was 92.2%. So in a remote situation, to be at 92.2%, it was only 93% full last year. So we're only 0.8 off. It really speaks to the great work done by the teachers and the staff at the schools in keeping the students engaged. Very, very positive. We did get a letter I forwarded you from Scholar Athletes, Springfield Scholar Athletes program, that due to the pandemic, they can no longer run the program, but John Fish and Linda Dorsina Forey, the former state senator, did say how much they loved working with us. They just couldn't keep the program going during the pandemic. I also sent you a vaccination update from the governor's office, and there's contracts reports that were sent to you also. If you have any questions on those, Pat Roach can help you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions, Superintendent report? Okay, hearing none. Any unfinished business? Hearing none. Any new business? I want to thank everybody to wish everybody happy St. Patrick's Day. It's 1 year. I know we've shed some tears, but rest assured we will smile and laugh again as we defeat this COVID-19. And thank you, everybody. Thank you to the.
Thank you,
I
everyone.
make a motion, we adjourn.
Yes. School committee staff and the administration and the school committee members. Motion to adjourn by Vice Chair Collins is
So moved.
a second. Oh! Quick to the draw there. Ms. Naylor, we need a laugh. Okay. But motion by Vice Chair Collins, second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
More than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Thank you for watching. Good evening and good health. God bless.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
You guys take care.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
You